Chairs No Waiting, episode number 473. Bernard Fox, Mayberry Squad Car Rendezvous, 1998, Part 1. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you by the folks over at WeaversDepartmentStore.com. Head over to Weavers and check out some of the new items they've got over there. They have the Mayberry fishing hole accessory pouches. That's right. You can get these accessory pouches for yourself. You can put all kinds of electronic devices, makeup, whatever you want to carry in it. There's these cool bottles. Oh, they're awesome. Go check them out over at Weavers. Or maybe you want to get a Mayberry pennant. Whichever one you'd like to do, head over to WeaversDepartmentStore.com and check it out. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations by listeners just like you. The executive producer of tonight's episode of 473 is Marty Davis. So Marty, thank you for being the executive producer, and thank you for joining me here in Mayberry. I'm Alan Newsom, your host for Two Chairs No Waiting, and it is always great to be able to visit with you here in Mayberry. I've had a fun day today. I just happened to have been up to Hendersonville, Tennessee, and got to visit as Floyd the Barber. So for those that don't know, I'm the Floyd the Barber tribute artist. So I've been up there and visiting with them at lunchtime, and it was a great time. Had a great fellowship with them, just a lot of fun. So I thank them for having me there. And I'm just back. I just got back in time to do the podcast, so it makes it even more fun. Just more Mayberry all day long. Folks, today we're going to be hearing from Bernard Fox. Now, this is the first of a two-part series where we're going to hear an interview from Bernard Fox. And, of course, that's Mayberry's very own bicycle riding Englishster. Englishster. Malcolm Merriweather. That's right. This interview was recorded back in 1998 at the Mayberry Squad Car Rendezvous. It was the sixth annual one, held up in the middle of a cornfield in Bradford, Ohio, at a replica of Wally's service station. Great time. It was some great events they had there. And though Bernard, he was only on 3 episodes of the Andy Griffith Show, Malcolm is one of the most memorable visitors to Mayberry. A lot of folks remember Malcolm Merriweather. Now, of course, I have to admit that, it was a long time before I actually thought of Bernard as Malcolm when you first told me about Bernard Fox, or I saw a picture of him or something. Because in my mind, I believe I was similar to a lot of non-Mayberry people that when they heard Bernard Fox or saw Bernard Fox, he was associated with a different character off some show called Bewitched. Dr. Bombay, you might remember him as that. Folks, you're going to enjoy this interview. Now, this is part 1, and the interviewer is Dennis Hasty. He's a big Mayberry fan, pop culture. He knows all kinds of stuff, so he's a great one to do this interview with Bernard. Bernard is so interesting. You're going to enjoy that. And then after Bernard's interview, don't leave us, because we're going to have Randy Turner come in and give his report about Gene Reynolds. You don't know who that is? Stick around and you'll find out. So, folks, let's head over to the Mayberry Squad Car Rendezvous and see what happens with Bernard. So, folks, take it away.
So, all the way from Hickman Dwight, England, Malcolm Merriweather, Bernard Fox.
They brought the rocking chair out for your old dad, you see.
So how are we doing these days?
Oh, fine. I'm enjoying my visit very, very much indeed. Not my first time here. Some of you may remember I did dinner theatre with Bob Crane at Ravenna, Ohio, and also at Reynoldsburg.
Okay.
And I was busy telling everybody yesterday my wife was raised in Chagrin Falls, and it wasn't Chagrin Falls at all. It was, what's the other place? Outside Cleveland.
Cuyahoga Falls?
Shaker Heights.
Shaker Heights.
Shaker Heights. And her dad, who was a producer, he produced Wells Fargo, the series, that was his, and Union Pacific, and lots of movies. And at one time, years ago, of course, he managed the Palace Theatre, Cleveland, when it was a vaudeville house. And he also managed, in those days, vaudeville and movies were shown together. And he managed the whole Fox circuit in that neighborhood.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah. So we have quite a few roots in Ohio.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how did you, obviously, to You're from England, I assume.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
What part?
Well, the family are all showbiz. I'm the 5th generation of actors in our family, and probably the last. And so I happened to be born in Wales, but that was because they were performing there at the time.
Okay. But you were raised in what part?
Well, during the war, I was evacuated to the north of England, which explains for my facility with the Yorkshire accent that Malcolm Merriweather had. And after I got out of the Royal Navy in 1947, I ended up in London, working from London and in the provinces. And nice thing about working in London, all the movie studios are in close proximity. So the ideal situation for an actor is you can be making a film during the day and come back to London and be in a play at night. There's nothing better.
I guess that would be pretty nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. So how's everything going as far as, I hear you were in this movie I heard of just recently, about some boat.
What, the Titanic?
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, that was an experience. I had an 8-week contract on that, and I started in September of 96, and I was still on the movie in April of 97.
Wow.
And believe me, it was quite an experience. They had the Titanic down there, built along the beach, in Rosarito Beach in Mexico. They had an 8-acre lake that was built, it's the biggest in the world, and that was built sort of on a level with the ocean. So as you were on an eye level, you know, up to your shoulders in water in the lake, you were looking straight out to the ocean. So from the Titanic, that was the illusion you got, that you were straight out. And then underneath the actual vessel, the Titanic, they had a 40-foot trench. And the whole lake and the trench were filled with seawater. And believe me, when they had invented, it was brand new, they invented a sort of a elevator system. So that when the bow started going down, it was really going down. And this elevator was arranged so that when they'd finished sinking the bow, they could pull it out from underneath, and then they went to the poop deck, and they could raise and lower the poop deck. And it was really startling to look over the bow, over the bridge one morning at about 4 o'clock, and here's the bow is slowly going under. And you can see the white painted bow and the anchor chain and the bollards and the hatches. And then the next night it had sunk out of sight, and the water was up to the bridge coaming, and the next night it was in the bridge and up the stairwell. It was really like sinking on the Titanic.
Well, now, all this time that you worked on it down in Mexico and whatnot, I mean, did you all know it was going to be what it would turn out?
Well, no, we didn't, of course, because the word was that Jim Cameron had gone overboard with the budget, and that there was no way in the world that they were going to recoup the amount of money that they'd laid out. In fact, there was one rumor that the bank, the Swiss bank, that were the shareholders of the bank were threatening to sue the bank because they thought they'd misused their money.
And it turns out it's the most money-making movie of all time, isn't it?
Biggest money-making movie of all time, over $1 billion.
Over $1 billion, and still has not reached the potential that it should.
No, because in September the 2-part videotape will come out, and then at Christmas time Jim Cameron is bringing out the director's cut, which means that everything that was cut out, including my unfortunate experience on the upturned lifeboat, which kept capsizing and tipping me off into the ocean, and that's been cut out.
Yeah.
But that'll be back in, and a lot of other stuff. The Carpathia that did the rescue, you saw very briefly Kate Winslet, I think, on the Carpathia, but actually they showed you the survivors climbing aboard and all freezing to death, of course, and that'll be back in. So it'll be a 4-hour and 15-minute cassette.
But I'm sure it'll do quite well. Well, of course, all these people are here to see you because you played one little Englishster.
That's right.
Coming through Mayberry, coming through North Carolina on a bicycle, Malcolm Merriweather. How did that all come about?
I think it was Harvey Bullock. You all know who Harvey Bullock is, I'm sure. His partner was a chap called Ray Allen Saffian, and Ray Allen Saffian wrote me into the Danny Thomas Show. And then they liked what I did on the Danny Thomas Show, and Harvey thought it might be a nice change to have an Englishster coming into Mayberry on the wrong side of the road and getting into a collision.
Barney said you were from somewhere else.
Oh, I remember. You know, I must tell you an interesting thing. When I went up, I had to, I've been refusing to do this, but the casting lady was so nice. She said, would you mind? I know you don't normally audition, but would you mind? And I said, no, be a pleasure. So I read a scene, but before we were sort of remembering over the years. And I was telling her about the scene with Barney in the Andy Griffith Show. And I said what happened was that Andy had been driving his police car and he'd run into Malcolm Merriweather on his bike. And he said, where are you from? And Malcolm said, I'm from Heckmondwike, England. So when Barney arrested me and they got in the sheriff's office there, I said to this casting lady, Barney said to Andy, you know what? This guy doesn't sound like he's from around here. And Barney said, no? He said, no. And Andy said, you know where I think he's from? I said, where? He said, Heckmondwike, England. Ask him, where you from, fella? Heckmondwike, England. He went, and this casting lady said, how long have you been in America? I said, 32 years. And she said, and not a trace of an English accent. And you know, that helped me get the part in Titanic, because Colonel Archibald Gracie was an American.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Of course, you did a few other characters, too, in Hogan's Heroes.
Hogan's Heroes, Colonel Crittenden. Now, the film I've just finished making in Morocco is called The Mummy. And it's based on the old Boris Karloff movie, but much more up-to-date and with more special effects. And what was the question?
Some of the other characters you had played, not only English, but in American, but German. And
yeah, so they sent me the script, and I looked at it, and I thought, this is a World War I fighter pilot with a big moustache, and it's Colonel Crittenden. So when you go to see it, that basically is the same character that you'll be seeing as Colonel Crittenden.
Well, now, do you get more, people notice you more as Malcolm Merriweather or as Dr. Bombay from Bewitched?
Dr. Bombay.
Dr. Bombay.
Yes, I'm going to have that put on my headstone when I go.
Dr. Bombay, come right away.
The Lord said, come right away, and he did.
What was always great was you was always off somewhere doing some exotic, crazy...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. They had me in wetsuits, and they had me in Roman togas and clown suits. It's a very interesting role, actually. Yeah,
it was great. I really enjoyed your part as Dr. Bombay. Is wonderful.
You might be interested in the way they popped them in and out. What they did was the cameraman, through his viewfinder, he had like a bomb sight with all marked in grades, and you'd strike a pose. And he would see in the bomb sight exactly where your hand was, where your nose was. And then they would come along and they nailed down steel plates around your shoes. And you would step out of your shoes, go into your dressing room, change into a different set of clothes, come back in, step into your shoes. He'd look through the bomb sight, he'd say left hand higher, nose a bit to the right, roll film. And that's how you popped out and popped in.
I love the one when you were a matador.
Oh, the matador, yeah.
Sliding somewhere.
I had to slide it under the door so that I could get out of the house or get into the house, yeah.
Well, I don't want to keep you all to myself. I'm sure there's a lot of people who'd like to talk to you. If anybody would like to ask Bernard a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Who did you work the best with, Dick Sargent or Dick York?
Dick Sargent, Dick York. Which one?
Dick York, no doubt. No doubt about it. Dick York was a fine actor, and but he was a man's man, and Dick Sargent, as you probably all know, he came out shortly after, and he could be a little snide at times. He once told me the back of my hair looked like Marjorie Rambeau leaving a room. Not too many of you remember Marjorie Rambeau, but some of you might. But it's interesting that Dick Sargent was the original choice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Dick was doing a different show and couldn't take it, so they went with Dick York. But Dick York was a wonderful guy. He had a dreadful back problem, and of course he was on pain-killing drugs, and unfortunately he got hooked on the pain-killing drugs, so they had to let him go. But even sick as he was, and he had emphysema, he was working from his house back east, and sort of learned how to cut through all government red tape, and he was able to secure blankets and warm bedding for the needy, and he built up a system of volunteers with trucks who would deliver it to the needy folks. So sick as he was, in his house there, he was helping and doing what he could.
Yeah, he was a great actor. Dick York. Love him. Anybody else? Kyle?
How do you enjoy the Mad, Mad, Mad World?
It's a mad, mad, mad world.
Well,
Fun doing that?
I would have enjoyed it very much, but that was Terry Thomas.
Terry Thomas.
No.
Well, once again, you know,
What's a Bobby Dazzler?
what's a Bobby Dazzler?
You're a Bobby Dazzler. I'm confronted by double dollops of Bobby Dazzlers.
Now, is Heckman Dwight a real place?
Yes, it is. In fact, there's an interesting... Jim Clark sent me a photograph of a brother and sister in their 40s, I would say, who had actually gone to England and gone to Heckman Dwight in search of Malcolm Merriweather. And they sent me this picture, and it had Heckman Dwight Real Estate over the shop window, and of course they were in front of it. And in a letter to Jim Clark, they said, the folk, Andy Griffith Show isn't seen in England, so they didn't know who on earth they were talking about. But
Right.
they was, has anybody seen Malcolm Merriweather in Heckman Dwight? And somebody said, well, they must have said, well, he was cycling through the United States. And somebody said, I believe he's still cycling through the United States.
Well, like when I was a kid, and you'd say, you were talking about money, and you'd say a guinea and a quid and a bob. And
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what in the world are you talking about?
Yeah, well, the English, before, we only went on the decimal system in the last few years, and before that, the GIs, how they managed in England, I'll never know, because there was 20 shillings to a pound. There was 10 shillings was half a pound. Well, that sounds all right. But a shilling was 12 pennies. And a penny could be divided into 4 farthings. And if you went to a professional man like a doctor or an attorney, he didn't charge you by 12 pounds or 20 pounds, he'd charge you by 20 guineas. And a guinea was at 1 pound and 1 shilling. So if you got a bill from him for 40 guineas, it wasn't 40 pounds, it was like 40 pounds plus another 40 shillings.
You lost me when you first started.
You could do a comedy routine just on English money.
I'm sure you could.
Yeah.
Anybody else ask like Bernard?
What was it like working with Agnes Moorehead? And do you still keep in touch with any of the Bewitched characters?
What was it like working with Agnes Moorehead?
Agnes Moorehead was a wonderful lady. She was thoroughly professional, very religious as a matter of fact. She wouldn't stand any nonsense, and she admired a professional. And I say with some pride that she admired my work. She liked the kind of thing, if you're an actor, and I've been one since I was a toddler, and I remember, for instance, when the Goonie Bird was on the set, and I was trying to corner the Goonie Bird, and I was going up behind him, which wasn't in the script, and I was going chook, 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 chook. Any of you folks that are farm folks know that's herding the chickies up in the corner. And I learned that as a boy, living in Ireland, doing Irish theatre and staying on farms. I see the farmer's wife go chook, 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 chook. Well, Agnes Moorehead very much appreciated that kind of thing, you know. And she did not tolerate fools easy. We had a couple of directors, one particular she wouldn't work with at all. And what was the second part of your question?
Do you ever keep in touch today with any of the Bewitched?
Do you keep in touch with any of the old cast members?
As a matter of fact, there are 4 of us living that were regulars.
I was going
to
to say that. The sad thing is almost everybody from Bewitched is gone.
You know, I did that Howard Stern show, and he said, how could you do that show? That is a very, very unlucky show. Everybody's dead. I said, no, they're not. Sandra Gould is still alive.
Yeah.
Mrs. Kravitz from next door. That one.
And she's doing well.
And Casey Rogers is still alive. She was Darren's boss's wife, the second one. I'm still alive, obviously. And
But that's pretty much it, isn't it?
yeah. And Alice Ghostly is still alive. And Sandra and Casey and I go to the Hollywood memorabilia signings, and you'd be amazed. I never understood why that show, it has a big attraction for gay gentlemen, you know, that show. It does? Oh, when you first sort of sit there, they come up and say, oh my God, it's Dr. Bombay. Oh, I must have that one and that. Oh, look, there's the, oh my goodness, there's the Matador. Oh, I gotta have that.
Could it be Dick Sargent had anything to do with that?
Well, I couldn't understand it, but somebody pointed out to me that it was because it was female-dominated.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I can see that.
With the mother and, you know, and Elizabeth, it was a female-dominated show.
Now, Erin Murphy, the Tabitha, she's still...
Erin's doing a spot of time at the moment.
Is she really?
Yeah, apparently she and her husband had a bit of an argy-bargy, we would call it in England, and she got in a car and tried to run him down. Well, the authorities didn't like that at all.
I just seen her in April.
So
things happen in a short time, don't they? Back there.
How was it like working with Paul Lynde?
Paul Lynde. Which could be another reason why.
Yeah. No, Paul's all right. He's a very, very bitter and sharp man. But he was pretty well on my side. I remember one time, one of the directors that none of us liked kept on at me about this, doing it over and over again, and Paul would say, well, I thought it was wonderful in the first place, and I don't know why you're going on like this. And he developed the line, that was his line, about Dr. Bombay. He has the bedside manners of an orangutan.
Right. Now, do you? I asked all the stars this. If you turn on the TV and you're on, will you watch it, or
no?
You prefer not to watch it?
No. No, I never used to like to watch the rushes. As a matter of fact, you tend to think, oh my God, I'm dreadful. I'm absolutely dreadful. You need an opinion other than your own, and that's where directors come in.
Because you're the most critical person is yourself.
Oh yeah,
yeah. You say you could have done it better, you know.
I do work hard to try and make a different character. You can't always do it, you know. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if anybody remembers. One of my favorite shows was The Girl from U.N.C.L.E., and Boris Karloff was playing a woman. The Mother Muffin Affair. Does anybody remember that at all?
Stephanie Powers, the girl from U.N.C.L.E.?
Yeah, and I was Mother Muffin's nephew. And he was Malcolm Merriweather, but sort of much deeper, more of an idiot than Malcolm. And Mother Muffin wanted to get rid of him, and she kept giving him quarters to put in a machine that would blow up. And one time, it blew me up, and I staggered away, and my tie was all over the place, my collar was all over, and I'm on the ground, and they had a bulldog come up and lick me all over my face. And in order to do that, they shoved hamburger meat in my ears and up my nose. And the bulldog had a wonderful time. But I tell you, a funny story, old Boris Karloff at that time of his life, he was a dear, darling man, and he had, his legs had irons on them. He had bad legs. And the director said to Boris, and Bob Vaughan was there, Mother Muffin had captured Bob Vaughan or something, and the director said to old Boris, now, I want you to put your foot up on a stool, pull your skirt up, put your foot up on a stool, and tie your shoelace. And Bob Vaughan would peer over, and old Boris turned around and said, naughty, naughty. And then the director said, now, Boris, take your foot off the stool, put it on the floor. Now I want you to bend down and do your shoelace. And Boris said, if I go down there, old boy, I may never come up again.
Another question.
Yes, of all your characters, and of course I watched some of the TV play that I saw last night. I'm curious, we've heard a lot about Bob Crane, but how was it working with the rest of the cast, and in particular, how was that done where the bedroom come up and you see the guy go down to the
For the people that can hear, he wants to know how, when they shot Hogan's Heroes, what was it like to work with all the other people, and how did they do all the trapdoor scenes and whatnot? Do you recall them doing this?
Oh, well, we're getting into secrets of the theatrical profession now, because I remember once the producer, I was talking to him about the 3 stars, and he said, my 3 stars are no problem at all. Most of my problem are with the supporting players, because they didn't think they were getting enough dialogue. And they kept bugging him. The Little Frenchman was the first one, and they kept bugging him for more dialogue and more dialogue. The bed thing, that was just simple mechanics. There was no problem with that at all. I mean, it was just a rope pulled on the rope, you know. But I do remember when we first started, Bob Crane had a dressing room on the soundstage, and he also had a dressing room on the lot, with a TV and a telephone and a secretary. And after about the second year, Werner said he wanted a dressing room on the lot. So they had to give Werner a dressing room on the lot. And the next season, what was the big fat guy? What was his
John Banner.
Banner? Yeah.
Banner.
Yeah, he said...
I know nothing.
He said he wanted a dressing room on the lot. So he got a dressing room on the lot. So now there was Bob and John Banner and Werner all in the dressing room on the lot. And the first assistant would call him to come in front of the camera. And Bob would arrive and say, where's Werner? Well, he's not here, Bob. He'll be here in a minute. When Werner's here, call me. And he'd go back. And Werner would come out and say, where's Bob? Well, when Bob's here, the guy couldn't get them all on the set all. It took him an hour to get them on the set all together.
Oh my, I was enjoying that so much I didn't want it to end. So, wow, that was amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed those stories. We have more of them coming next week. So, goodness, wow, Bernard had so many stories. I got to meet him in Michigan, and guess what, folks? I found, and I don't know what's on them, but I found 3 8mm tapes that say Michigan on them. So I've got to pull those on. I'm hopeful we'll have some of the interviews and things we had from the cast at that event, and we'll be getting those in the future. But Bernard, he sat around with us and told stories like you're hearing on this podcast. He told stories just with people sitting around a circle there in Michigan for hours. I don't know how many, a long time. He was such a amazing man. He knew so many people. Folks, don't miss part 2 of this amazing interview. I know you're going to love it. It's just amazing. All right, so hey, we're not finished. We're not finished. So let's head over now and get our report from Randy Turner.
Welcome to This Week in Mayberry History, a report by special correspondent Randy Turner of the Gomer and Cooper Pyle Comic Book Literary Guild of the Mayberry Historical Society.
Legendary actor, writer, director, and producer Gene Reynolds was born on April 4th, 1923 in Cleveland, Ohio. Early in his career as a director, Gene directed 3 episodes of The Andy Griffith Show during the second half of the show's first season. Not long after his family moved to Los Angeles, Gene began his career acting with his debut in a 1934 Our Gang short subject film. As a child actor, he was eventually placed under contract to MGM in 1937 for 3 years. He had roles in Captain's Courageous, Heidi, and Boys Town. He played Jimmy McMahon in 2 Andy Hardy films starring Mickey Rooney before serving in the Army during World War II. After his discharge, he continued to act throughout the 1950s, making appearances in series such as Dragnet, Annie Oakley, and I Love Lucy. His acting slowed in the late 50s as a result of a series he co-created, the popular Western Tales of Wells Fargo. The series premiered in 1957 and aired until 1962. Gene wrote more than a dozen of the episodes himself and began his career as a director, directing many episodes of the series. In the 1960s, Gene focused on direction. He directed an episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents and directed on series such as Wanted, Dead or Alive, and Leave It to Beaver, before finally coming to Mayberry. When the Andy Griffith Show began, Sheldon Leonard directed the first episode. The next 9 were directed by Don Weiss, while the producers searched for a long-term director. They found that person in Bob Sweeney, who directed an incredible 80 episodes, nearly a third of the entire series. Bob also came back decades later to direct Return to Mayberry. But like everyone else, Bob needed the occasional break. Gene Reynolds was the first director brought onto the show to provide Bob that break. Gene directed 3 episodes in a row on The Andy Griffith Show, beginning with episode 17, Alcohol and Old Lace, which told the story of the Morrison sisters and their flower-making machine. His next episode was Andy the Marriage Counselor, in which Andy tried to help Fred and Jenny Boone live together peacefully. And finally, Gene directed Mayberry on Record, which featured the bluegrass band The Country Boys. After Bob Sweeney began, Gene was the only other director in season 1, as Bob came back and directed all the remaining episodes that season. Gene went on to direct on dozens of series, including The Munsters, F Troop, and the superhero comedy Captain Nice. He played a bit part in the episode he directed for Captain Nice, which was his last acting role. He directed many episodes of some series, including 74 episodes of My Three Sons and 34 episodes of Hogan's Heroes. In the late 60s, he added producer to his resume, most notably for Room 222, but on other series as well. But Gene's greatest impact resulted from his role as the co-creator of MASH, which aired from 1972 to 1983. Gene was the executive producer for 120 episodes and also wrote 11 episodes and directed 24. He also co-created Lou Grant, which ran from 1977 to 1982, on which he wrote or co-wrote 5 episodes and directed 11. Gene received 11 Emmy nominations for MASH and won 3 times. He won another 2 Emmys out of another 11 nominations for Lou Grant. He has also won both Writers Guild of America and Directors Guild of America awards for his work on MASH and Lou Grant. And wonderfully, Gene just celebrated his 95th birthday. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening, and remember to take Andy's advice and go out there and act like somebody.
Wow, thank you, Randy. And now, folks, if you Randy posts stuff over at the Gomer and Goober Pile Comic Book Literary Guild, and you want to make sure you don't miss any, so go and send him an email at turnersgrade@gmail.com, and he'll send you a note letting you know whenever you post a message. Thank you so much, Randy. Wow, guys, you are learning so many things. Bernard told us all kinds of stuff tonight, and then Randy Turner's report on Gene Reynolds. I didn't know anything about him. That was an amazing report. And Randy, thank you so much for all the work you do gathering information about the people who made the Andy Griffith Show what it is. And we really appreciate you taking the time to do that for us. This is his 2nd year he's working on these things for us, guys. So we really appreciate Randy. And I appreciate you. Thank you for being here with us. Now, we have one other thing I want to tell you about, and hopefully I can play this for you. Let's see if I can play it without too much music. But the Mayberry Effect movie is about to, they're trying to raise money for this. We talked about it a couple of episodes. I didn't talk about it this week, so let me go ahead and start this up here.
Yeah, I've known him for years.
I love that kid.
Mount Airy has become a kind of Americana pilgrimage site.
We have fans all over the country that gather at huge events like Mayberry Days every year. We get together as large groups. There's tribute artists who dress up like characters from the Andy Griffith Show.
This ain't nothing but not throwing no bricks.
I'm ready for tonight.
All right, people, let's straighten up over here.
He just looks like Andrew G. Robinson. Judy.
From the halls of Mount Thousand to the shores of Chipotle.
What makes us do that? So the Mayberry Effect.
My hometown.
The Mayberry Effect. Our friend is putting that together. So, folks, I want you to head over. There's links in our show notes so that you can go over there. And Chris Hudson, he's the guy that's putting that together. And I definitely want you guys to go, and there's an Indiegogo campaign. The link is in our show notes, and it's been in there the last several weeks. So you can go to one of our old shows, any of them recently, and you'll see that, and you can help support it. I believe he's only up to, I don't know, not near as much money as he was hoping to get, but any money he gets will help go toward paying for the music and different clips and things that he wants to be able to use as part of the completing his documentary. So he's been working on this for quite a while, and it's a really great documentary. He's up to only $3,500 on his Indiegogo campaign, and I believe he's got a little bit more that he's been getting in from other directions. So folks, go over there and check it out if you would be willing, and just go to the show notes to get the link, because that's the easiest way. But Randy is definitely, he's got a great new reward you can get there. If you donate $15, you can get a Make America Mayberry Again bumper sticker. I love that. That is absolutely amazing. So go over there, and I'm anxious to see this Mayberry Effect documentary. So I guess I'm biased toward it, but if you can, go and check it out. All right, folks. Hey, I want to thank all of you, both of you, for being here tonight. It is always great to spend time here in Mayberry with you. I would love to hear from you. Give me a call at 888-684-8415 and leave a message. Or you can go over to twochairsnowaiting.com, click the contact button, and all kinds of information there about how to get in touch with you. Folks, have a great Mayberry week, and we'll see you right here on Two Chairs No Waiting next time. Have a good one. Bye, everybody.